evening, everybody. It's Sunday night. We've just finished the 2020 Toy Fair, and this is what's on Joe Mind. Coming at you again, we'll be doing another fantastic YouTube installment to get this one out quickly and with some pictures, because there are pictures to see, although not quite as many as we would like. I'm Mike Irizarry. Joining me this evening, the lovely and talented regular co-host of What's on Joe Mind, Joe Colton.
Good evening, everybody.
Joe Colton, rumor is that you forgot we had a recording tonight.
Shut up.
I don't like it when mom and dad fight.
Right? Why are you being like this to me?
It's what we do here. I mean, you've been on the show for 4 years now? 5? I don't know. Long time.
Long time.
We got to figure that out. I mean, you're not as old as me, but you're getting old, yeah.
Yep.
And you've already heard him from the Peanut Gallery, joining us again, as he did earlier this week. Former extended title at Hasbro, or as I like to say, Honcho, for the G.I. Joe brand. Mr. Mark Weber.
Oh, it's always good to be on What's on Joe Mind.
That's a lie, but thank you anyway.
Especially now. This is a seminal episode. We have actual things to talk about.
I know, right? Isn't it neat? I wish I had a little bit more to talk about.
It feels like a real brand.
Come on now, don't get ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
So anyways, we are through Toy Fair. We have seen Hasbro's big presentation among all the other big presentations at this year's event. We're going to focus mostly on G.I. Joe and Hasbro's stuff there. We'll get into more of the other stuff when we get into the regular episodes of What's on Joe Mind again. But we're going to focus on, like I said, the Joes. We had got to see 4 of the 6-inch line that is debuting this summer. We already talked a little bit about Snake Eyes a couple days ago, back when Joe Colton was out at the mines. And since then, we have gotten pictures of Scarlett and Roadblock and Duke. I'll give my thoughts first. I know normally I'm hitting cleanup, but I'll start early and let you guys kind of play off of that. My biggest complaint is these guys don't necessarily look like they're on the same team. And I know G.I. Joe has always had a diverse cast of characters that look like all kinds of different, different characters and shapes and sizes and colors and what have you. And we're not talking races here. We're not talking genders. I just talking, like uniforms. We've got Roadblock is playing homage to his 1986 version that had that green vest, and Scarlett's the classic Scarlett. They made the tan yellowy elements a lot more yellow, and then they've got background colors or backup colors of blue and gray, and even some extra red in there with the trim. And then Duke's color palette is pretty standard to what we would expect Duke's to be. We've got the tan up top and the green down below. And Snake Eyes is Snake Eyes, so that there's no color palette. He's just all black. Mm-hmm. And so they just don't look like a unit. They don't look like they're playing for the same bunch. And I think that some kind of a unifying logo, maybe a bit more pronounced, would have been a better idea there. So that's the first point I'll make. I'll let you guys go from there.
I have so many emotions about this. I think they're trying a futuristic look, but sort of uniform through the gold and copper, which is kind of a stretch. They might also try and make them interchangeable. I don't know. Maybe.
I guess I should throw out there, too, that by and large, I liked a lot about these figures. I don't want to make it sound like I'm just bagging on them, but they're just there was not so much a cohesive thread through that first bunch. Mark, your thoughts?
The one thing that I think is, there's a lot interesting about it, but I agree with the point that it doesn't necessarily look like this is from the same crew, right, or the same team. The one thing I think is interesting with 3 of the 4, and Snake Eyes isn't included, it looks like they have kind of a unifying comlink thing up on their shoulders, which I think is kind of a cool concept and something something I pushed when I worked at Hasbro, when I worked on Joe, was everybody has like their signature weapon. You know, their Uzi and katana if you're Snake Eyes, the 50 caliber, the Madus for Roadblock, Scarlett's crossbow, but they frequently have a backup weapon like a sidearm. And I always thought it was a miss not to unify that weapon because hardly anybody has, Chuckles aside, when he's not throwing missiles at tanks,
That's right.
hardly anybody uses a straight pistol as their A plus number one weapon. And I would like to have seen a uniform Joe weapon that would be expandable into the Nerf universe. So you could be on the team too with your G.I. Joe blaster. So you're getting a little bit of that with the Comlink, which I like. But I think by and large, they're really quite good.
Yeah.
And most of the stuff, it's the same stuff that I used to complain about moderating McFarlane message boards is people only talk about what they're complaining about and what they're disappointed in. So the articulation looks outstanding. There's a decent amount of weapons that go with them. It's not slavish to the original, but there's so many homages on each character. It's obvious they were paying attention. But the overall look to me, it looks like they came out of a cartoon that doesn't exist. Like they're following design cues of, the gold should match and make sure they all get laser weapons. And I get that if it's coming from a style guide, if it's coming from something else. But as far as we know, quality news sites notwithstanding, there is no Joe animation coming soon.
Yeah.
So if you didn't have to follow a style guide, then I don't understand some of the design decisions like the gold. That's what's a little bit interesting to me is what were they following? What decisions were they making? Because a lot of times you are backed into a corner and you have no choice. When I worked on Transformers, we made one of the worst Decepticons ever. They're mad scientist, G-Axis. And he's a really cool kind of dark burnt orange color. Nobody else has that color. It's uniquely him. And for a guy who is a lower level villain who hadn't been made yet, it was really cool because it would help define him. It's his color. And we were forced to make him like peanut M&M orange. Like could not have been more candy coated. And here's me doing air quotes with my fingers to appeal to kids. And I fought as hard and as long as I could with that. And the designer wouldn't say it, but essentially what he told me was, and this is a guy I liked and I worked with very well, was I can't do anything about it, Webb. This comes from higher than me. So you can push, but I can't help you on this. When normally he was a very engaging and helpful and collaborative designer, but he couldn't help me here. He couldn't save me from peanut M&M G-Axis. And I wonder how much of that was involved here.
Yeah. It's funny that the one, besides the comlink, the one aspect that does tie these figures together is, except for Snake Eyes again, the gold accents.
Well, it's also weird because Scarlett has gold and copper. Like, it's a lot.
Pick one, right?
Pick one, yes.
Yeah, it's
and then yellow on top. I don't know.
There's a lot there to kind of put together, and they pull it off okay. I don't want to make it sound like Scarlett's a bad figure. There's a lot there that I really like.
Yeah.
But the palette is a little jumbled.
And what kills me about Scarlett, and this is coming from not just a lifelong Joe fan, but a pure redhead, right?
Yes.
Look,
are you gonna say what I think you're gonna say?
Yeah, and then you can follow up. Yeah, some people say she was doing a Sabine cosplay, which I think is
why is there
fun.
A white thing coming off
right.
of like why? Why does she have a white tuft?
Not just that, not that roguing her hair doesn't give her a color break and make it cool, and maybe it's more appealing to kids. But of all the mainstream female Joes, right? CoverGirl was kind of a throwaway outside of the comic. I think they could have done a lot more with her being fashion model turned grease monkey. That's a cool story, but they never did much with it. Lady J, a great character who I thought they never got enough of the covert nature of her specialty involved. She was too much of Flint's girl. I felt they never defined her well enough, not even in the comic. But Scarlett is great. And Scarlett's been great since Jump. And of all of them, Scarlett is the most professional and the most no nonsense, one of the most likely to lead the Joes, at some point, and has in the comic books, and one of the least likely to put a streak in her hair. Right?
Yeah.
Scarlett is all business. And whether she was Duke's girl or Snake Eyes' girl, it never really mattered because she was never defined by her boyfriend.
Right.
Scarlett's the best. And I would put her with Ripley and Princess Leia and whoever else you want to put as the fourth person on the Mount Rushmore of 80s women's action hero power, right? She's a big deal, and the streak in the hair is really hard for me to swallow because it feels like a not a I don't know if it's a misrepresentation or just a misunderstanding of the character. And I'm not one of those guys who says nothing can change. It has to be the 80s Joes, but it feels like it cheapens the thing that I thought made her character the most awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I am glad, if we're going to talk about Scarlett's hair, I am glad that they gave her an actual hair color as opposed to just red.
Yeah.
Like, not hair color red, like American flag red. Yeah. It is that needed to change. It works fine for the old cartoons. It works fine in the comic books because, comics are a little bit tougher to go that way. But if we're going to have an actual representation of something that's a person, I like that she's got a real hair color now.
Yeah. And any version, any shade of red I'm okay with other than not humanly feasible red, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you this. There are some redheads who look at people who color their hair red and look down their nose at them. I'm not that guy. I'm like, welcome to the team, right? You're just being honest with yourself. It's the most popular hair color sold.
Oh,
so
my God.
I got jump on board. There's room on the bandwagon. For many are called, what's the line? It's actually a Bible verse. But for many are called, but few are chosen.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm talking about.
And admit it, you're a little jealous that those folks don't burst into flames when they are exposed to the sun.
You know what? I lived 15 years in Phoenix. I went to Arizona State. I'm a Sun Devil, man, and I am still here. So let's give some credit where it's due.
Take that, son.
I lived on the sun, right?
It's a dry heat, though. It's a dry heat.
I once walked into a press conference once. I made the reporter I was with change sides of the street to the wrong side of the street in July. And we walked like 3 blocks before he got it. And he said, "Did we just change paths for the shade?" And I'm like, "You're damn right. We just changed." Look at me, man. You're damn right we're walking in the shade.
Didn't understand that sizzling bacon smell was you.
No, that's me. That's all me.
But moving forward, we've got four characters. We're going to play a quick game of rank them. So, Joe Colton.
What?
Rank those 4 figures from number 4 to number 1, going up to the one you like the most.
I'll go Roadblock, Duke, Scarlett, Snake Eyes.
Okay. Mark Weber?
Yeah, Roadblock's the bottom of the barrel here. Particularly if you just have to have, and here I go on the chest cut again because I hate it. But if you just have to have that chest cut, but you're covering it up with a giant vest, what's the point? And I get the laser weapons, I get it, but however futuristic they wanted to go, they went over the edge with Roadblock's railgun. So yeah, Roadblock's the worst. Scarlett is just way too busy.
Yeah.
Just way too much going on. And I get it. And again, I think the core point to look at any new product is who are they trying to go after with this? And by going with the lowest possible price point and making it kind of cartoony, it tells me they're going after a younger audience. And there's nothing wrong with that That's probably the right way to go. But if you're doing that, then where's the, if not full on animation, which you would hope for, but if not, then where are the digital shorts and the things to tie into it? Because without a digital activation, you are not getting a younger fan base. You're not.
Okay.
So having Scarlett be anime Scarlett, if there was a fully activated marketing plan behind this to go after new fans, I get it, but I haven't seen any inkling of that. So Scarlett would be next up for me. Duke, I think, is pretty good. I'm pretty well happy with Duke. Even his weapon, I think, is great for slightly futuristic. And being a soccer fan player coach, the shin guards don't bother me so much. So Duke's next. And then Snake Eyes is at the top. Snake Eyes took most of the beef early online because he was first, right?
Mm.
And because he's everybody's, if not favorite, 1 through 3 or 4. Snake Eyes is damn near perfect. He really is. But the bit I'll keep coming back to, and I'll never stop beating this drum. So if people could have that, that button that lets you skip 30 seconds ahead on your DVR, they should have one called Weber. And that's what you hit when I talk about the chest cut. Because I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And I don't believe that there isn't a better way to afford that little bit of articulation without murdering the torso aesthetic of what is otherwise a completely gorgeous figure. And since we've introduced the chest cut into G.I. Joe, we've been trying to apologize for it by putting straps over it and vests over it and bandoliers over it and hiding it under bra armor on female characters, which kind of works, actually. But if you're not Iron Man or a robot or a knight, that chest cut is killing the look of your figure. And it looks like a beautifully painted portrait of Snake Eyes that someone put a thumbprint right in the middle of. That's what I see every time I look at that figure. And it's a shame because I think it's otherwise perfect.
My rankings are going to be the same as Mark's. I got Roadblock at number 4. If I'm going to give him a letter grade, I'd call him a C-. There's a lot there to like, and there's a lot there to not like. The gun, not so good. I've already gotten into the palette. For some reason, and I know it's going to be, we're not going to know until we see him in hand, but for some reason that gold highlight is so much brighter with him. And if it would just either tone down or you replace that gold copper color with something more in the gunmetal run, it would just be a lot more palatable. But like I said, it's probably, or like Mark said, rather, it's probably a decision that was made from on high that they couldn't work around. I would give Scarlett a B. I think she's pretty good. I think there's a good look in there that just got overthought a little bit. You guys have said there's too much going on, and yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And then we get into the number 2 spot, and I don't have a lot of distance between the number 2 and the number 1 spot. Number 2 is Duke. That is an excellent figure. It might even be that I like Snake Eyes better than I like Duke, and that's why I've got Snake Eyes at number 1. It is kind of weird that Snake Eyes has the old school grenades, though, like the pineapple grenades. That's an odd place to do your throwback, I think.
Yeah. One of the other nitpicks I had on Snake Eyes, because we didn't know when it first came out it was going to be a Pulse exclusive, but we knew it was going to be an exclusive. And exclusives are great because the price point is squishy, right? If you want to add more to it and charge $5 more for it, you can. So there's lots of room in there to move, and there's not a lot of paint ops on this figure, right? Because Snake Eyes is almost 100% that matte or shiny black. Mm-hmm. But they could have done the weapons with silver blades instead of making them all look carbon black, start to finish. And they look good on the weapons rack, but imagine how much better they'd look with actual silver blades. And that's something they really, really could have done, which I thought was a miss. And a lot of people, myself included, squeaked about the lack of timber in a pack that there's a soft price point on. You're not going to get timber in standard retail at $19.99 alongside Snake Eyes. It's too much plastic and paint to expect. Mm-hmm. So why wouldn't you put him in this pack? But there's so many nods to him from the wolves on the sides of the weapons rack, from the art that very clearly references a wolf, that I absolutely 100% believe there's another version of Snake Eyes coming at San Diego Comic-Con that will have Timber with him instead of the weapons rack per se. The only real question that I would have from a design perspective is, why would you use version 2 Snake Eyes here and then do something different at San Diego Comic-Con, unless they're just going to do this guy again with a wolf, which would be kind of a cop-out, I think.
Maybe.
I assume we're going to get a more version 1 Commando Snake Eyes in the line, the regular Snake Eyes that we haven't seen yet. And then my expectation is that these Joes will lead forward to a 6-inch movie line, and then we'll get a movie accurate Snake Eyes, whatever that ends up being. So, and I don't have any problem with them ringing the Snake Eyes bell 4 different times this year. If ever there was a year to celebrate Snake Eyes, this is it. So I got no problem with that. I just, if I had been involved in it, I would have varied those 4 releases. And maybe they will. We just don't know just yet. But it seems like an odd choice to put version 2 Snake Eyes here and then include a different one with a wolf later. I guess my long-term fear here is the Snake Eyes that comes with Timber will just be this guy again, or this guy tweaked a little bit, when you could have got more bang for your buck.
Maybe. We'll let that one play out. I don't want to get it too hard into speculating what comes next.
So just to jump in here, I didn't get a chance before, but have you guys been on the Hasbro Pulse website under their New York Toy Fair 2020? I'm assuming you have.
Yes.
Okay, so on the right side where it says series that you can refine your search, it's got like the Lightning collection, which is the Power Rangers, Marvel Legends, X-Men, Star Wars, the Black Series, Transformers. There is no way to refine it to just G.I. Joe.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now they have 4 pre-ordered figures, so I mean, that's not too concerning just yet.
Like you had asked before, if we think it's a series or if it's just a bunch of figures that they're trying to release.
Right. This is the gigantic question, and it's one that remains completely unanswered, is we are getting some Joe stuff early. That's great. We assume there will be some movie product, hopefully a lot of movie product. But the billion-dollar question is Joe going to continue beyond the Snake Eyes movie? Are we going to have ongoing product? We don't have any idea here, but the writing on the wall isn't good, because we weren't told anything beyond what came out, or honestly, what leaked. I'm not faulting Hasbro for that. I've been in the position where you have a great presentation and then 2 of your best reveals get leaked the week of.
Yeah. And
it sucks. It sucks. And, it takes the thunder out of your presentation. And, sometimes you can adapt. And I'm a little surprised that they didn't. If Destro is the missing character we haven't seen yet, and all signs point to that, you couldn't have had a silhouette, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's not ready or unapproved, just do a silhouette. We can tell by the mask. Years ago on Transformers, they wouldn't let me announce. I wanted to show the next year's line, Combiner Wars, which I was all supremely proud of. And they wouldn't let me show anything. They wouldn't let me talk about it. They wouldn't let me do anything about next year's line. And I'm presenting at BotCon, and I can't talk about next year's line at all. Nope, we're all saving it for San Diego Comic-Con and other stuff. And I'm like, so I'm going to BotCon, the premier Transformers only event, and I can't do anything about next year's line. And that was the directive from PR. And the head of the line, Jerry Javoine, at the time said, Webb, put up a shadow as your last slide, because the fans, they'll all get it. They're all alpha fans, right? So I close the presentation by saying they told me I can't say a word about next year's line. So my lips are sealed, but they didn't say I couldn't show you something. And I put up the image of Superion, who was a very recognizable silhouette.
Yeah.
And the crowd went nuts, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't show them much. I didn't give them much, but they know now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just a drop of that. If we hadn't seen anything ahead of time, we would have a very different feel about that Joe panel on Saturday, right? But when the stuff did get leaked, you still have time to adapt just a little bit. You only needed to have an eyedropper of news, and the Joe fans would have gone nuts. And I thought that was a tremendous miss. But anyway, what's not being said? There was no mention of animation in the pipelines at all. There was no mention of movie product other than we can't talk about or show you anything movie. And there was no mention of 4-inch Joe at all. So even if they had just said, we know a lot of the 6-inch product is great. We know we have a lot of 4-inch collectors out there, and we want to let you know that there will be 4-inch movie product. We just can't show it to you yet. That would have gone a long, long way. But we didn't get any of that. And I think Joe fans are right to be nervous about all of that.
Yeah. So I guess we'll try and tie things up and go into a happier direction here. So
we're happy.
We generally are, because again, it's nice to have actual news to talk about, an actual product to talk about. Clearly, there were other properties that were bigger winners than G.I. Joe this weekend. And again, we'll limit this to the Hasbro family of brands. But Joe Colton, if you were going to pick one non-G.I. Joe brand as the weekend's big winner, what would it be?
Oof.
Show prep.
Shut up. I would say it would be between Transformers and Star Wars. And I'll tell you why. Because Star Wars, they had Darth Revan's lightsaber Black Series, which I know there's a ton of people who would want. And then on the robot side, they were just releasing so many robots.
I believe that's pronounced robots.
Yes. So they've got their strategy well with the Star Wars. You know, like Star Wars Land, all the like the new rides, everything is Disney World and Disneyland is open, and now they have make your own lightsaber. And now with Toy Fair, they're releasing yet again new toys, repaints, whatever. People are gonna spend a lot of money on these toys. Yeah, I'll go with Star Wars.
Mark Weber.
I have a lot of biases here. And there were a lot of Transformers stuff trotted out. Part of it is I was such a huge fan of their Siege toy line that I think it's hard to follow up on. So the Earthrise stuff is okay, but I thought the Siege stuff was out of this world. So a match that's hard to follow, so to speak. But I don't know the brand manager at all. Seems to be a project manager from gaming, rather new to the brand. But to trot an associate brand manager out there to immediately refer to something incorrectly when she talked about the Teletran one a couple times within a minute, and there wasn't an audible groan from the audience, but so when someone comes out and talks about, well, the Optimus Prime is a great part of this collection. It's like saying the Snake Eyes is a core part of the G.I. Joe team. It's such a ham-handed miss, and again, nothing personal and not her fault, but you shouldn't send somebody out there to preach to the diehards who's going to mess something like that up. That's a catastrophic mistake on one level. So that was early in the Transformers presentation, and I couldn't stop thinking about it as I watched the rest of it. So, but yes, a lot of Transformers stuff, and that's great. And the Star Wars stuff looked really cool too. That Revan lightsaber is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So good for them. But for me, I thought the Marvel team was through the roof. I loved their presentation. I like the mix of their products. I think they're doing incredible work, especially in a year. Normally they have a movie that's really going to help them, but I don't think Black Widow is going to move a lot of product.
Yep.
Just in that I'm thrilled for the movie. Can't wait for the movie. My favorite Marvel movie is Winter Soldier because it was very spy-ish, right? So I cannot wait for the movie. It should be great. But to come out with a movie that's a prequel for a character we know their ultimate fate, right? that hurts it on some level. I don't think there's a lot toyetic from that movie, to use a very Hasbro phrase.
Hmm.
And other than that, they have a video game and they have the Eternals, which they couldn't talk about or show. And it might be great, who knows, but it's certainly not going to move a lot of toy product. So without a lot of help from Marvel, I thought they put together a dynamite toy line for this year, and they showed so much. And Disney is not an easy licensor to work with on approvals. They're very specific. So the fact that they had their ducks in a row, that they had approved things to show, and that just really, really smart moves, like putting out a Hugh Jackman Wolverine figure, right? Because Disney's not going to activate X-Men for a while. And once they cast whomever is the new Wolverine, they're probably not going to approve any old Wolverine product. So it was absolutely the perfect time to hit this, because it's going to evaporate and you won't be able to do it. So I was so impressed with the Marvel team. I thought they were the runaway winners from all of Hasbro's presentations.
That's a good call, and I think they had the best presentation, certainly.
Yeah.
My pick is going to be a little off the beaten path, and it's a bunch that I'm a little bit jealous of, because it's a long-ignored fan base that isn't used to having a lot of product on the shelves, and suddenly there's a couple of lines out there that offer a pretty complete selection of characters and a lot of nice nods to the past, and it's Ghostbusters. You went from 0 to getting your favorite characters 2 different ways, all in 1 year. And, there's a Ghostbusters movie coming out too. I'm just saying, might have been nice to see that for a brand that's been around over 50 years. Maybe it's just me.
I love the presentation for Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
The one thing that makes me a little bit nervous about it as a property, everyone likes it, right? Or loves it, I guess, if you want to go a little stronger. There's nobody who doesn't like Ghostbusters.
Well,
but I don't know.
If you find somebody that doesn't
like
Ghostbusters, you walk away from them.
Right, exactly. I was just watching the second season of Stranger Things again, showing it to my son for the first time. And they did the bit where Lucas and, I forget his name, the toothless guy, go up to ask Max if she wants to trick or treat with them. And she blows them off. And they immediately try to figure out, do the autopsy and figure out why it went wrong. And they say, maybe she just doesn't like Ghostbusters. And then they immediately dismiss that. Nah, everybody likes Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
So I think everybody likes it to loves it. I'm not sure it's anybody's favorite brand. And
from a toy's perspective, no, I don't think so. And I don't think it's something that, you can't plan out 4 years worth of Ghostbusters stuff.
From an overall perspective, and there's nothing wrong with making something that everybody believes is A- or B+ if that's not sacrilege. But I don't know that Ghostbusters is anybody's favorite brand.
Yeah.
And so I wonder a little bit if there's all of a sudden a whole lot of Ghostbusters stuff on the shelf, unless that new movie is activating a whole new generation of kids that want toys. I'm a little nervous about the current appetite for Ghostbusters and certainly the long-range appetite for Ghostbusters.
Well, I'll spot you on this one. Here in St. Louis, we have a running show called the Toyman Show. It happens 7 times a year, every year.
Oh my God!
It is just a giant toy show. It's held in a big machinist hall out on the west side of town, and they fill it 7 times a year. And there are guys there. There's probably 24 of them that Ghostbusters is their brand. Like, they show up, they've got their cars tricked out, they've got their proton packs, they've got their jumpsuits. Yeah, they're out there. I don't think they're Legion or anything, and I don't think you can plan out 3, 4, 5 years of Ghostbusters toys at a time. But just from a standpoint of, they released kind of a retro-themed wave that's got all your important characters in it. They put out a movie-themed wave that's more realistic, that's got most of your major characters in it. And there's a movie coming out later this year. I imagine there'll be some product connected to that, because from what I've seen in the trailers, it's going to have younger characters in big spots. So I really think they are going to push that one towards kids a little bit. So I think more stuff is coming from that. But even in a short term, it's nice to see that. And it just would have been nice to see a tidy, even a short-term plan for G.I. Joe in much the same vein. Instead, we kind of got 4 figures, and we know there's going to be a few more coming, and we know there's a movie, and we haven't seen any kind of official information besides that, and there's a few things that get spoken about in hushed tones, and sometimes you hear stuff on podcasts like What's on Joe Mind that are confirmed by 4 and 5 anonymous sources, and yeah, sure, that you can take that as fact, but it doesn't really make you feel any better because it could always change, and there's all these what ifs, there's all this cloud, there's all this obscurity, there's all this just junk getting in the way of you just enjoying your property. And for at least a few months, Ghostbusters doesn't have to do that. So I think their fans are big winners after this weekend.
You know what I think, Mike?
What's that?
I think if you were a real man, you'd identify your source. Who's your source, Mike? Who's your source?
You were my source.
Yeah, fair enough.
No. Anyhow. Yeah, I got in a dust-up on Facebook, Joe Colton. Some dude...
The best kind.
Yeah, some dude said I needed to name all my sources.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, because he doesn't seem to understand what a free press is. That these people outing themselves could potentially hurt their financial well-being, so they don't want to go on the record. But sure. Just for you, random crank. Just for you.
Your source is Joe.
Yep.
Joe Mama. See what I did there?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Sadly, we did, yes.
Right.
So,
hey, I'll be here all week.
All right, we're starting to run long. We'll just get some parting shots. Joe Colton, any last thoughts?
I like the line. Don't get me wrong. There are just things that I am confused about. I'm going to wait and see what the rest is, if they release anything more. Man, that gold has got to go. I did notice that all of them have like little blue as well, like in the joints or on the padding. And I don't know if it's going to be this, quote, futuristic nanotechnology, knowing if the soldiers are hurt or need repairs, or it's all like GPS locating them.
No idea what you're talking about right now.
On the figures, if you see like on their joints, on their padding, there's like lines of blue, like baby blue. Clearly, you didn't look at all the figures.
I did not look. I probably didn't look at them that closely. No.
Wow. Okay. So on Scarlett, on her shin guards, she's got, and her knee pads, she's got like a blue line between the brass, yellow, and red.
And the copper. Or on her gauntlets, she's got blue. And on the communication device she's wearing. You should take a few minutes, Mike. Take a look at those figures.
Some of us have jobs on the weekend. Some of us have jobs.
And some of us don't.
Anyway, I do like the figures. There's just, I don't know. There's a few things. But all in all, I'm excited that there's actual figures that we're getting.
Mark Weber, parting shots.
I'm going to restrict it to 3. And one thing I didn't talk about, I think the art on the packaging is really important. And I don't think any of it's bad. I think it's all pretty good, actually. But the fact that it's not synchronous, it's not all the same style. Take a look at the artist's rendition of Duke and compare it to... I understand the Snake Eyes will be different because it's black and white, and that whole packaging is different because it's being sold separately. We'll see what the in-store Snake Eyes looks like. But Scarlett and Roadblock look like, same toy line, and Duke doesn't. Totally different art style, more of a full body shot and not as zoomed in, and it is distracting, and it speaks to a scattered marketing presence, I guess. And as a marketer, that bothered me. Point number 2, I guess Jazzwares isn't making 4-inch Joes.
Yeah, we told you that last month.
So, news break, not accurate. To the tune of 4-inch. If there was good news about upcoming 4-inch product, they should have told us at Toy Fair. And I know Ben Montano, who's running the brand now, is the guy I work with on Transformers, who I like very much. And I know he hasn't been on the brand very long, but I don't think he would miss on something like that. So I think the fact that we didn't hear about 4-inch Joe at all, not even just a yes, it's coming, but we can't show you yet, lends me to believe that it's either not coming or coming in a very, very small amount. And I know that's the shoe that a lot of fans are waiting to hear drop. And I think when we find out, fans are going to be really disappointed about it. And I have no inside knowledge about that at all. That's just what I read by the presentation. If they had good news to share, they should have shared it. So it's either bad news or a miss from that presentation. And along those same lines, if you read through the tea leaves here, Roni Neumann, who being added to the brand earlier in the week, she's in Pawtucket. She works out of the Rhode Island office. Ben Montano is overseeing the brand, and Ben's great. So that's good for fans. But Ben is also in Pawtucket and the head of Transformers. So he was given Joe in addition to what's obviously his main priority, Transformers, and a really important brand that's been rolling for years. And Lenny, the designer, is in Pawtucket, and a great designer and a good friend. But he also designs Transformers. So every bit of that suggests that Joe is not making a big return. Joe is getting a salting of product ahead of a movie, and likely nothing after that. That's what I read about into all these announcements this week. And I don't have, again, no inside knowledge on that, but it doesn't bode well. And I hope I'm wrong, because I'll always root for Joe as a brand. But every little bit, if you put it together and read into it, there are no indicators that would lead you to credibly believe that Joe is back for the long term. Sorry to be the wet blanket, but if you put all that together, it tells a kind of disappointing story.
My bullet point is going to be that if you're on the fence, go ahead and jump in. One good thing about a smattering of product is that you can buy all of it, and it's not going to hurt you too bad. So if you're on the fence about Roadblock, if you're on the fence about Scarlett, if you're on the fence about Duke, buy one. Find out. It's $20. You'll be okay. If you decide you don't like it afterwards, you'll be fine.
Yeah, support the brand. If you're on the fence, if you hate it, yeah, I don't buy anything I hate.
Yeah.
But if you're on the fence, absolutely buy it. Support the brand. The best thing we can do with it is, a year's worth of releases, is to support the brand so they see the fans are out there and that there is a future for Joe at product.
Yeah. The only way that we're going to grow this brand, because it's up to us to grow the brand, clearly, is to keep pushing it around. You've got a kid that you got to buy gifts for. Say they're 10, 11 years old. Normally you'd buy them a Marvel Legends. Go ahead. Slide a G.I. Joe in there. See what comes of it. They'll ask you about it. You can tell them all about G.I. Joe from when you were a kid. And they'll either love it and think that that's really neat that they have a toy that goes back 30 years, or they'll think you're a crazy old man. Or in Joe's case, a crazy old woman. Whatever. Right. We already thought Joe was a crazy old woman. That's fine.
That's true. I just don't have cats.
Give it time.
I've done the snake eyes, and as we were talking on the podcast, I ordered my Scarlett because I want a closer look. I want to like her. She's one of my favorite characters. $20.
Exactly.
One thing Scarlett's not getting enough credit for, the freckles. Her freckles game is top notch. And those are hard to pull off convincingly, right? They're either missing or they look like measles, right? and they got it perfect. So
they did.
Big ups for Scarlett's freckles. Make sure you take a look.
While our criticisms of the figures earlier in the show, maybe they didn't make the argument for you to go out and chill out $20 on this. Just keep in mind, I'm also the guy who, for the last 8 years, every time the club put out a picture of a figure, I was like, oh, I don't know. And then I would see it in hand, and I'd be like, hey, you know what? That's pretty cool. So seeing them in hand is going to make a big difference. So if you're going to pass final judgment, that's a bad idea. If you're not going to buy them, pre-order them. Okay, I understand. Maybe you don't want to pre-order. But don't close off to it until you actually see them in hand, because they may wind up looking a whole lot better than the composite pictures that we're seeing online right now.
And by the time that purple hair Baroness comes out, you're going to want to have a collection going.
Dear God.
So negative.
Just
Negative.
Just saying.
I tried to bring the house back up, and Weber comes in with his purple hair and brings it right back down.
Man, I didn't give her purple hair. I'm just keeping it real.
All right, let's keep it real right on out of here. One more time, this is What's on Joe Mind. This is our recap of the very small amount of G.I. Joe product revealed this weekend at Toy Fair. You're watching this on YouTube. Be sure to give our channel a subscribe and give our video a like, and maybe we'll get around to making more of these things besides the occasional news item and Joe Colton's unboxing videos, which, you know, God knows, sometimes they're here, sometimes they're on some other channel. I don't know. She's crazy. Again, all she's missing is cats. But for my co-hosts Mark Weber and Joe Colton, I'm Mike Irizarry. This is What's on Joe Mind. Yo, Joe, keep the flags flying. Have a great night.